We've got fart jokes, pee jokes, poop jokes,
Dude, you have so much poop on you right now.
and period jokes.
You're covered in blood. Oh my god.
Oh my god!
All with a bunch of A-list actors. It's movie 43, but is it watchable? Thank you, studio audience, that I can't really hear because you're not really there, and welcome everybody to Is It Watchable? I'm your host, Paul. Ever wonder what would happen if someone managed to get their hands on naked photos of nearly half of everyone in Hollywood and then blackmail them to be in their movie? It'd probably look a hell of a lot like this. From SNL, to SCTV, to In Living Color, to Mad TV, to way too many others to mention, sketch comedy has given us iconic characters, enduring quotes, and launched the careers of many legendary comedians. We usually stay up late and check out these bite-sized pieces of comedy on the small screen, but movies have also gotten in on the fun. The Kentucky Fried Movie, Amazon Women on the Moon, GrooveTube, UHF, and others have brought together sketches with bigger budgets and content that probably wouldn't have gone over well on network television. Kinda like this movie, 2013's Movie 43. Probably better known for its impressive cast of over 20 A-list actors than its envelope-pushing sketches. But it's one of those rare films that works on a number of different artistic levels. For instance, not only does the movie contain jokes about poop, it is itself poop. The movie kicks off with a guy, played by Dennis Quaid, pitching a movie to a studio exec, played by Greg Kinnear. His pitch is presented to us by way of the sketches in the movie. The first, starring Kate Winslet, is a lady on a blind date with a successful and handsome lawyer, played by Hugh Jackman. Problem is, the dude has a set of testicles hanging from his neck. And that's pretty much it. The joke is that nobody seems to notice except for Winslet's character, and we get to see Jackman's neck testicles jiggling, being dipped in soup, and rubbed on a baby's head. Then it's back to the pitch where Kinnear's character is starting to doubt the movie's marketability.
Are you serious?
And this is how the movie goes. Back and forth between the sketches and Quaid's character desperately trying to sell his movie. It's what ties all this crap together. So we're on to the next sketch, which stars Liev Schreiber and Naomi Watts as parents who are describing to house guests how they provide their homeschooled son with all the experiences he would encounter in high school. This includes bullying,
You dropped your books.
his first kiss, and more bullying. And at the end, we get to see how messed up the kid is from all those years of abuse.
Jen, my mom says hi.
Hello, Jen.
Hello, Mrs. Miller.
Hilarious. Next, we're in for a bit of romance when lovebirds Chris Pratt and Anna Faris are about to pop the question to each other, but not the same question Pratt's character was anticipating.
Will you poop on me?
What?
He's understandably put off and a little conflicted until he gets some advice from the always funny JB Smoove.
Pooping is a gift you give to your soulmate.
He prepares for the big night by eating burritos and drinking laxative, so by the time they're ready to get it on, he's in such a rush to empty his bowels that he ends up insulting her. She's so upset that she runs out of the house because I don't know why. And when he chases her down, boom, poop explosion. But luckily he's okay, and these two kids live happily ever after.
It's so beautiful.
You see, it's funny because she's an attractive lady who loves poop. It's just that it's the kind of movie that makes you think. Anyway, Kinnear's character has heard enough, but Quaid pulls a gun on him and forces him, and unfortunately the rest of us, to sit through more of this garbage. So now we're in a grocery store where a cashier's announcements over the PA are interrupted by his ex-girlfriend. They proceed to have a weird, hypersexual conversation that's inadvertently broadcast throughout the store.
Your flesh, slick with cocoa butter, it haunts me.
By the time she leaves, the customers have heard enough to become invested in their kinky relationship.
Are we gonna let that foxy little thing run willy-nilly out of this boy's life?
So they volunteer to take turns covering the rest of his shift so he can go after her. And then a word from the sponsors as we get a spoof of an Apple commercial featuring an MP3 player that looks like a realistic life-size naked woman. Really? iBabe? It's an iPod in the shape of a naked body, so iBod, right? Right? Next up, speed dating, where Robin attempts to find a relationship that isn't with an older man who wears tights. But Batman, played by Jason Sudeikis, shows up with work to do and also proceeds to ruin all of Robin's encounters.
What?
You're married?
Having recently broken up with Superman, Lois Lane, Uma Thurman, shows up and we find out that Superman's been stalking her.
Last night, I look out my bedroom window, and there he is, just floating there, just stroking that nasty little curl and masturbating. Blue.
Then it's Supergirl's turn as Batman feeds lines to Robin from underneath the table, all while looking up her skirt and commenting on what he's seeing.
Enormous down here.
Then Batman spots the Penguin, but is interrupted by Wonder Woman, who's upset that he left her, and she also had an abortion, blah blah blah. Meanwhile, Penguin has strapped a bomb to Supergirl, but Robin saves her, they kiss, and it's revealed that it's not Supergirl at all, it's the Riddler. Back in the real world, things escalate as Quaid demands to see the studio chairman to fast-track the project. But they stop along the way so we can hear another pitch. This sketch brings back the iBabe from earlier, and we find out in a company meeting that the iBabe is responsible for mangling the fingers and private parts of young men everywhere due to an unfortunately placed cooling fan, in a vent where the vagina would be.
We left an opening for a vent, and then we placed a highly efficient, super powerful micro fan in the opening.
Richard Gere plays an oblivious Steve Jobs type who doesn't seem to understand what the problem is.
I'm still not seeing what the problem is, though.
The sketch ends with the introduction of a new iBabe in a different color, but with an equally dangerous cooling fan. After that hot mess, we're taken back to a more innocent time when two 7th graders are in the middle of a date when the girl has her period for the first time.
Want to sit and watch some more TV?
Yeah, I'll just watch it from back here.
Hilarity ensues when her boyfriend, his brother, his dad, and eventually her dad have a hard time dealing with the situation while totally humiliating the girl. Okay, this is just one example of how I think this movie misses the mark. Now, I totally don't mind gross out humor or bathroom jokes, if they're funny, but I'm gonna wager that very few adults are gonna find a 7th grade girl's menstrual mishap very funny. I just felt bad for her. A 12-year-old boy, on the other hand, yeah, he'd probably think that's hilarious because, you know, girls and periods, am I right? And I've no doubt junior high kids would love this whole movie. Problem is, it's aimed squarely at adults with its R rating, strong language, sexual references, and nudity. But me, I just wanted to throw a towel around that girl and get her the out of this movie. Back to the unnecessary subplot where Kinnear and Quaid finally make it to the studio chairman's office.
We need to buy it right now.
You don't need my blessing for everything. You're pathetic. You know that? I f***ed your wife backstage at Sherrick's Night of Champions dinner.
Kinnear is understandably upset and decides to get revenge by greenlighting Quaid's movie in hopes that it'll ruin the studio and in turn his boss's career. Because, you know, drama and stuff. On to the next sketch where Johnny Knoxville has gotten his roommate Sean William Scott a special birthday present to make up for sleeping with his girlfriend.
Surprise! I caught you a leprechaun.
The sketch is supposed to be funny because the leprechaun has such a foul mouth and they keep beating the crap out of it.
I'm gonna cut off your balls and feed them to you! Stop!
The tables turn, however, when the leprechaun's brother sneaks in a pot of gold. After a bloody fight, the guys prevail, dispose of the dead leprechauns in the trash, and get to keep all the gold coins. Also, there's an additional birthday present, a fairy who gives sexual favors in exchange for gold coins. Sorry if I'm spoiling all the side-splitting jokes here. Next, Kinnear snatches Quaid's gun and confronts his boss in the parking lot. Before things can get too ugly though, Quaid, surprise, pitches another idea. This one involves Halle Berry and Stephen Merchant on a date at a Mexican restaurant because apparently this movie thinks that people on dates is the premise for all great comedy.
Let's play a game.
Okay.
Have you played Truth or Dare?
The game quickly escalates into a series of dares that get more and more outlandish, including tattoos and over-the-top plastic surgery that make them both unrecognizable by the end of the night. It's really just a bunch of sight gags. Back at the studio, the boss whips out his own gun and fires several shots into Kinnear's chest. He's okay though because, surprise, it's all just a movie. But if you thought this assault on your eyeballs was over, that would be nope. Cause next up is a sketch starring Terrence Howard as a basketball coach back in 1959. He's giving one of those classic movie speeches to his team of all black athletes before their big game against an all white team.
Win or lose, I am so proud of y'all. Number 2, you're gonna win. They're white, you're black. This is basketball.
And that's pretty much the joke, but honestly, it might be the most clever premise in the whole film. Finally and mercifully, the credits start rolling. But again, if you thought this movie was over, nope again. Because now we get a sketch starring Josh Duhamel and Elizabeth Banks as a couple who've recently moved in together. The problem is Josh's cartoon cat, Beazle. Yeah, I said cartoon cat. Beazle's insanely jealous of their relationship and does everything he can to sabotage it. This includes spraying her, hitting her with a truck, and shooting her. And after she tries to kill Beazle with a shovel at a kid's birthday party, don't ask, the kids jump to Beazle's defense and stab her to death. Comedy gold. And now it's over. Movie 43 was produced by Peter Farrelly, one half of the famous Farrelly brothers who gave us actual funny movies such as There's Something About Mary, Dumb and Dumber, and Kingpin. He also directed a couple of the sketches along with over 10 other directors, including Guardians of the Galaxy's James Gunn, Rush Hour's Brett Ratner, and the very funny Bob Odenkirk. Combine those guys with a conga line of A-list actors and this movie becomes a who's who of Hollywood and a perfect storm of talent that should have been Money in the Bank. But it wasn't. Movie 43 grossed just under $9 million. To put that in perspective, Hugh Jackman alone was reportedly paid twice that much for his role in 2013's The Wolverine. So yeah, almost nobody went to see this movie, partly because of the bashing it received, but also because many simply didn't even know it existed. It wasn't promoted by any of the actors, it wasn't screened in advance for critics, never a good sign, and it was released in January when Hollywood traditionally puts their trash out on the curb. Back to the critics, they absolutely destroyed this movie, many calling it one of the worst films ever made. It won Razzies for Worst Picture, Worst Directors, and Worst Screenplay, and it currently holds a dismal 5% on Rotten Tomatoes. Yeah, it sucks pretty bad, which leads to the burning question on nearly everybody's mind. How'd they get all those stars to be in this morgue fire? Conventional wisdom would suggest blackmail, but no. First, they somehow convinced Hugh Jackman that this would be a good idea. Once he was cast, they were able to get Kate Winslet because, well, Hugh Jackman. Once their sketch was shot, they were essentially able to use it as bait to convince other actors and directors to hop on board. It actually took several years to complete this film because they had to work around everybody's schedules. And in the process, proved once and for all that our mothers were right when they used to tell us that just because your friends are doing something. Also, depending on which country you're in, you might have seen a different but equally stupid version of the film, where instead of the subplot with Dennis Quaid and Greg Kinnear, there are some kids using the internet to search for the most banned movie in the world. Seriously. Anyway, movie 43. Is it watchable? Look guys, this movie's bad. There's no dancing around that, but it's watchable if only to see all these stars completely themselves, figuratively and literally. I can't be alone in thinking that there's something way too satisfying about watching so many extremely talented and successful people fail so hard. And because it's just a bunch of unrelated sketches, you can watch as much or as little as you want and really don't have to pay that close attention. I mean, definitely don't go out of your way or spend any money to see it, but if you're bored and your morbid curiosity is just raging, when else are you going to be able to see Chris Pratt covered in his own poo? Now, for most of us, we can happily go to our graves without seeing that, but, you know, there's an audience for everything. And for this movie, I suspect that audience is still getting their first pimples. That's not me being ageist here, it's just that, like I said earlier, the ideal audience for this film most likely couldn't buy a ticket to see it without a parent or guardian. For everybody else though, it's a lot like sitting through a really weak episode of SNL. So, like watching SNL. Well, that's all I've got. Thanks for watching, and be sure to join me next time when I check out Deathbed, the bed that eats. Seriously. And as always, do us a favor, subscribe.